Before I came to Dessa, my brother, Ma Jun, had already passed away. 6 months earlier, he had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer and had become little more than a walking corpse. After hearing the news, he changed. He began doing reckless things, chasing after stimulation. His final reckless idea was urban exploration, which led him to the far eastern edge of the world. I learned of his whereabouts through an email from a small travel company. The email, written entirely in Russian, said that if I wished, I could come and bring back his body. But when I met the company's owner, he told me it wasn't so simple. Your brother was a brave man. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong place, the man said, shaking his head sadly. I soon discovered that Ma Jun had decided to explore the Odessa catacombs without even hiring a guide. He had insisted on going, saying he wanted to see the chaos of that place. The company owner explained, clearly troubled, and insisted on returning the money Ma Jun had paid. He's been missing for 4 days already. That's why I contacted you. This isn't the first time it's happened. The maze has claimed the lives of many reckless explorers. I usually warn them not to go down there. If they insist, at least let me go with them. But they don't listen, he said again, shaking his head. I gave a strange smile, wondering if this was all just part of some scam. Perhaps he turned a blind eye just to make some money, organizing unguided trips beneath the soil of Ukraine. If Ma Jun hadn't been American, with wealthy connections, I doubted the man would have ever called me. I truly wondered how many young men and women filled with hatred he had lured to their deaths, all for the sake of underground secrets. I won't leave until I find his body, I told him. He simply repeated his warnings, words he had probably spoken 1,000,000 times before. The tunnels were vast. People said there were over 1,000 entrances scattered across the city. It was like an underground city, filled with caves and passageways, pitch black. What do you know about this place? The city law only allows me to enter the first layer. That's maybe 5% of the tunnels that run beneath Odessa, he said. Maybe he thought I would give up and just take the money back, but Ma Jun deserved more than that. So I forced him to guide me into this dead end. Soon, we could hardly see anything ahead, except the faint glow from the helmet light he had given me. Why would anyone want to come here? I whispered as we went deeper. The caverns were already narrow, and we weren't even 30 meters underground yet. Turning a corner, the space grew tighter. With every step, the outside world seemed to vanish, replaced by a nightmare taking form. There's a lot of history here. During the war, some soldiers lived here for 6 months. Can you imagine being trapped for that long, without sunlight, without any sense of time? This maze will trick your brain, the guide said, his voice echoing in my ears as I spotted strange, grotesque drawings on the walls. I knew it took both courage and stupidity to keep walking into this endless darkness. This is as far as I can go, the guide said when we reached another staircase. I couldn't even see the first step below. The darkness was suffocating. You're breaking the law today, I told him, pushing him forward and forcing him to descend. He protested nervously. Didn't you hear what I just said? It's impossible to search every corner here. People say only 80% of the tunnels have even been mapped. If we go deeper, we'll both die. I drew the pistol from my coat and motioned for him to keep moving. If you try to run, this will come in handy. We began searching the catacombs. Neither of us spoke. Now I understood why people believed this place was haunted, because even the rats had vanished here. The guide whispered, "We're about to get lost." I handed him my coat, then pulled out several small flashlights I had prepared. I left one at the last corner, then crouched as we entered what looked like a military shelter. My flashlight beam swept the room and froze on something unsettling in the corner. A life-sized mannequin, dressed in protective gear and a gas mask, as if prepared to stay underground for months. "You said you don't bring people down here. How do you explain this?" I asked. He muttered in Russian, "Sir, there are things in this place I don't understand either. But we really shouldn't be here. Your brother is already dead. Please accept that." But I refused to believe him. I was convinced he was hiding something. I had to go deeper. We descended another level. The air grew thinner. My flashlights were spent, and now only instinct guided me. I kept one hand on the wall, counting steps, making sure the guide was within reach, my gun always ready. After a few minutes of feeling our way through the dark, he pleaded again to turn back. We could be walking in circles. Why not bring a whole team tomorrow? With more people, it'll be easier to solve this maze. His voice cracked with fear. I brushed my hand against the wall, signaling him to continue. I was convinced the truth was close. But as we turned another corner, my last torch began to fade. I tossed it to him, trying to save some light. He trembled, whispering, "There's little air here. Don't be surprised. You're already in hell. Let's go back. We'll never find your brother." I thought of Ma Jun. If the situation were reversed, he would have done everything to find me. "He's not dead," I lied. "Maybe he's only lost. I won't believe he's gone until I see his body with my own eyes." That lie was enough to silence him for a while. We kept walking, but each path only led to another twisting passage, endless. Then we ended up back in the same shelter. I sat on a bed, dizzy. The guide looked pale. I turned and saw the grotesque mannequin had vanished. In its place sat a soldier wearing layers of masks crouched in the corner. I whispered, "What the hell?" and shined my light down the hallway. Something moved in the darkness, a shadow, the soldier, no more than 10 meters away, rushing toward me at terrifying speed. I panicked, but quickly realized this was a man, not a statue. I shouted for the guide to run, but it was too late. The soldier lunged, strangling him in an instant. All I could think about was escape. I ran, only to hit a dead end. My heart pounded, the pistol still in my hand. I pressed myself against the wall, knowing if I couldn't see him, maybe he couldn't see me either. I held my breath, listening. The sound of his mask's breathing grew louder right in front of me. A body leaned in close. I shoved him away and bolted. The guide lay dead on the ground. I snatched his phone, using its glow as a light, but once again I hit another dead end. Despair set in. I turned back, and the soldier stood at the far end of the hall, staring at me. There was something familiar in his stance. Then I understood. He hadn't come here to die, but to hide. I screamed, "Let me go! Let me get out alive! I won't tell anyone!" He stepped forward, drawing a serrated curved knife, and then I heard him whisper, "No one will ever know. As far as the world is concerned, you're already dead. Let it be that way. You continue to do what you are doing here. It's good that I can make up a story, tell them something like a cave-in happened," I pleaded, "or just that you were robbed." He was now standing only a few meters away from me, maybe only inches away from stimulating my chest. "I know you have nothing to lose, but please, I still have a family. I still want to keep going." I sobbed. The soldier raised a finger, pointing to his mask, then he stepped aside, signaling me to leave. I hesitated for a moment, trying to understand what he was thinking. Why would he make such a choice? But I didn't dare question the chance to escape. I left it in the dark, stumbling to find a way out. I felt like it took hours to really figure out the location. When we met again, I heard the sound of bones breaking, realizing he was missing the guide's body. He had his back to me. He was hunched over the body like a beast. I didn't even know if he realized I was watching him. Later, I left those tunnels, spent the next 10 hours trying to find a way out. My breathing was rapid and heavy. My body ached, barely able to move. Finally, I got out, managed to crawl through a drain pipe and came to southern Odessa. I smelled awful, looked like I hadn't slept in days, but at least my life was free. The next day, I returned to the United States, did exactly as he intended. Ma Jun's beneficiaries accepted my story and read Ma Jun's will a week later. Standing there listening to them divide the money he left behind, like it was a lot, it was disgusting. I started to understand a little why he wanted to escape this society and hide in an unknown place, never to be seen again. I told myself he was gone now. No normal person could survive in that kind of environment underground in the city for that long. But sometimes I have to go back there, walking the streets of Odessa. I hear screams. I know my brother is still down there. I am a 22-year-old girl. I was almost killed by my ex-boyfriend. To protect myself, I will use a pseudonym. Let me start with a brief background story. I was almost 20 years old when the domestic violence occurred. My ex-boyfriend Ligia was 27 years old. We had a big dog and a cat. The dog was his, the cat was mine. We lived in a 3-bedroom house. The layout of the house was walk in, the living room was on the right, and the dining room was in front. The kitchen was on the left. The living room and dining room were open plan. The kitchen was closed off. Walking down a long hallway, the bathroom was on the right. The master bedroom was at the end of the hallway on the right. There were 2 more bedrooms on the other 2 walls. The week before the 18th, Li Jia had just returned from working out of town. He had been away on a business trip for about 3 or 4 weeks. The week he came back, he was absent-minded all day. I would ask him or tell him something, and less than 5 minutes later, he would completely forget or not hear what I said at all. It was like he was in another world. One day I asked him to help me with housework or asked him to take out the trash, but he ignored me. I was really frustrated. He said if he kept doing this, I should just slap him in the face. 2 days before the incident, we went out to dinner with his mother. His mother was very worried about him because everyone could see that something was clearly wrong with him. At that time, we only knew that he had obsessive-compulsive disorder. But now I'm even more certain that he had more than just obsessive-compulsive disorder. On the 18th, we were sitting on the sofa in the living room. I was painting my nails. He was playing Mario Kart. He looked at me and said, "Xiaoxi, please curse me." At that time, I was dealing with my own terrible mental health issues, so I really didn't have time to pay attention to him. I didn't know what to do, so I suggested he take a cold shower. He walked into the bathroom, muttering to himself. It felt very wrong. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, I just didn't feel very safe. I walked over and planned to call his mother and invite her over for dinner. Actually, I wanted her to come over to help Li Jia. He looked at me, turned his head, and told me that he only needed me. I walked out and started walking towards the living room. Just as I was calling his mother, he walked out of the bathroom naked and started yelling at the dog, telling him to attack me. Fortunately, that dog was actually a well-trained guard dog. His mother answered the phone at that time and heard everything that was happening. He started calling me lazy and said I needed to pay for what I had done. I ran to the bedroom with my phone. His mother hadn't hung up yet. He kicked the door open and smashed my head into our mirrored cabinet door. He threw my phone on the ground and shouted that he was going to kill me. I ran out of the bedroom in a panic, trying to run to the front door. As I passed the kitchen, he grabbed me and choked me. He said he was going to kill me again. I remember glancing towards the table and seeing my cat kicking his legs. I'd never seen him so scared. I fought and struggled desperately to avoid losing consciousness. I couldn't breathe. I reached for him, just wanting to get his hands off my throat. I remember in my vision, black spots started to appear, and I felt like I was dying. I didn't know what he would do with my body. He asked me if I knew what it felt like to be raped. I'm not sure if he was really crazy at that time, because I had been raped a year ago. That month, I was very open about the impact that had on me. He threw me to the ground and stomped on my head as if to stomp me to death. During the entire attack, this was the only time I saw his eyes, almost lifeless. His pupils were dilated to the point where you could barely see the irises. He shouted over and over again, forcing me to admit that I was lazy and telling me to list them out. I started to apologize and do anything to make him happy. This seemed to work. I took the opportunity to stand up in a panic and ran out of the house as fast as I could. It was February then, in one of the coldest provinces in Canada. I was only wearing shorts and running away in a sweater. I probably passed 2 or 3 houses when I heard the dog screaming. I'd never heard this sound before. I screamed and fell to the ground, crying and shouting Li Jia to let him go. I knew he had killed the dog. At this time, a group of neighbors heard the screams and ran over to help. An elderly couple called the police and brought me to their house. They gave me the phone to contact my mom. She was out to dinner with some friends at the time. I told her that Li Jia killed the dog and wanted to kill me too. That's when the police finally arrived. They used a megaphone to tell him to raise his hands and come out. He was naked and covered in blood when he came out. After he got into the car, a police officer came over and talked to me while the others searched the house. Soon, a police officer came over and asked me how many dogs I had. I told him I had a dog and a cat. I asked them if they were still alive. They told me the dog was dead in the bathtub. They killed him in the living room and then took him to the bathroom and put his body in the bathtub. I asked about the cat. They said they couldn't find him anywhere. At that moment, I felt that my cat was also in danger. I panicked and couldn't provide them with any more information. I just wanted to find my cat. The police asked me if there was any food that could coax him out and where he was hiding. Then they found a cat that was still alive. But he was very scared. They couldn't get close to him because he was too scared and was attacking the police. They cordoned off the scene and let me in to save him. Even though they had cordoned off many places, there was still a lot of blood. The smell of blood and feces was unbearable. My cat was lying on the bed in the bedroom, crying. I picked him up. As I walked out of the house, Lee's mother had gotten out of the car. He asked me where they were. I told him that the Lees killed the dog. He fell to the ground. I saw him shaking. I walked past him, put the cat in his car, and sat in the front seat. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go with him. At that moment, I hated him, hated what his son had done to me and the dog. To this day, I still regret my torturous behavior. I had no right to be so cruel to someone who was also suffering. My mom contacted my aunt who lived nearby. I would go with her after the examination and investigation. After the investigators collected evidence in the house, I went back to get some clothes and things. They forgot to close the bathroom door. Luckily, the first person to pass by wasn't me, but Lee's mother. He screamed in fright. Finally, my aunt came, and I left with her. The next day, I went back to get my things. The police found someone to dispose of the body, but they didn't clean up the mess of blood and feces. His mother and sister came to clean the house. There was blood everywhere. A lot of the furniture was broken. His mother helped me clean up everything in the bathroom and threw away anything that couldn't be used. 2 weeks later, I took a plane with my cat to see my mom. The lawsuit lasted for 2 years. Later, I found out that he had gone to load the gun. For a long time, I didn't want to know how he killed the dog. But when they were examining the evidence, a police officer mentioned a baseball bat. He was only under house arrest for 10 months. Now, 2 years have passed, and he is still trying to contact me, blaming me for not helping him. I feel like I do have some responsibility. I not only blame myself for not knowing how to help him, but also for not leaving the animals a way out at the time, and for being too lazy to walk to the cabin a week earlier and bring the baseball bat home. Whenever I think about what happened that day, I feel a chill down my spine. The torrential rains in California remind me of something that happened in 2001. I got off work late that day and went to McDonald's. As I parked my car in the McDonald's parking lot, a homeless man immediately came over and asked me if I had any spare cash because he wanted to buy something to eat. I told him that I would be happy to help him as long as it was for food. Then we walked in. He had a bright smile on his face. He ordered a Big Mac, fries, and a drink, and I ordered my usual favorite chicken nuggets. After ordering, he formally introduced himself. His name was Little Tang. We started chatting. He told me that his wife and son had died in a car accident a few years ago, and he himself had been homeless for 3 months. I felt sorry for him and said some encouraging words to him, telling him that there are many programs in society that help those in difficult situations. He thanked me again, not only for my encouragement, but also for buying him food. He told me that since he became homeless, I was the first person to be so kind to him. Most people either ignored him or just gave him some money but didn't want to talk to him. I told him that it was nothing. Soon the food we ordered was ready. Because I was planning to take it home to eat, Little Tang asked me if he could walk with me to where I parked because he also needed to go from there back to his makeshift little shelter. I asked him why he didn't stay at the restaurant. He replied that many people would stare at him and look at him with strange eyes, so he would feel uncomfortable eating inside. I agreed. Said, okay, and then we started walking out of McDonald's into the parking lot. What happened next was terrifying and changed my life and Little Tang's life. We were walking casually when suddenly we heard someone shout from behind, accompanied by the roar of a car engine. Little Tang turned around. I didn't have time to react. He pushed me away with all his strength and pushed me into the side of the bushes. You might ask why he did that. We were just chatting like long-lost brothers. But Little Tang didn't mean to hurt me. He did it to save my life. Because as all of this happened in slow motion, I saw Little Tang's body like a rag doll being hit by an SUV and then falling limply to the ground next to me. A few seconds later, I heard a loud crash, and I saw the SUV that hit him crash into a nearby lamppost. The lamppost started to spark. I saw smoke coming from the car. Okay, let's slow down a bit and tell the story, because I just described too much that happened in a short period of time. When I realized what I had just witnessed, I immediately got up and ran quickly to Little Tang. He was having trouble breathing. I saw him start to bleed. I held back my tears and was shaking all over. At this time, inside the McDonald's and even people outside the store ran over to help. Little Tang was badly injured. Fortunately, a nurse who was in the McDonald's drive-through line came over to help. Someone also called the police. As for the person driving the SUV, he only suffered minor injuries. But I could tell he was starting to panic. He kept saying he didn't see anyone and that he was sorry, etc. However, at that moment, I was most concerned about Little Tang. He was sometimes conscious and sometimes unconscious and had difficulty breathing. After a painful and long time, the paramedics and police arrived and put Little Tang on the ambulance. I asked the paramedics which hospital they were taking him to. They told me it was nearby, less than 5 minutes away from McDonald's. I'm happy to tell everyone that Little Tang recovered from this accident, although he had to undergo several surgeries and eventually needed to walk with crutches. That night we met by chance and brought us together like long-lost brothers. After Little Tang recovered, I helped him find a job. He eventually had his own little house. Little Tang passed away in January 2019 from natural causes at the age of 74. Until today, I still miss Little Tang. He was a sincere person. Although he had flaws like everyone else, he tried his best to live his life well. I am very happy to have been a part of his life. As for the driver who hit Little Tang, I later learned that he had been drinking that night and drove into the McDonald's parking lot and hit Little Tang. Fortunately, he wasn't driving very fast at the time, otherwise Little Tang might have died on the spot. Little Tang, I hope you continue to rest in peace in heaven. I also hope this story reminds everyone that we will all die. Each of us in this world has an endpoint. This is something we cannot change, but there is one thing you can do. Live your life to the fullest. Don't take it for granted and remind the people you love how important they are to you. It was a cold winter morning and I was drinking my third cup of coffee in the office when I suddenly received an emergency call. A gas poisoning incident occurred in Police Officer Lee's apartment. 4 family members, 3 dead, 1 seriously injured. I sighed. Such things are not uncommon in winter. But my intuition told me this time was different. After arriving at the scene, the pungent smell immediately hit me. I put on a mask and carefully inspected each room. In the 59.5 square meter apartment, a faint mist permeated. In the living room, the youngest son was lying on the ground, breathing weakly. In a small bedroom, I found a burning charcoal stove in the closet next to the parents covered with blankets, lying on the bed and motionless on the ground. The eldest son was found in the master bedroom. He was lying face down on the ground with his head towards the window, seeming to be in pain. A half-empty glass of wine was on the table next to him. Preliminary investigation shows this is a typical case of carbon monoxide poisoning, but something felt wrong. 3 days later, the youngest son regained consciousness. We hoped he could provide key information. I don't remember very well, the youngest son said weakly, his eyes unfocused. I only remember drinking something and then everything went black. What did you drink? I asked. A glass of wine. It seems my brother gave it to me. He hesitated, and everything after that was blurry. But it pointed us in a new direction for our investigation. We quickly found some key clues. In the back seat of the eldest son's car, we found a box containing charcoal and a lighter. There was a coal shovel under the seat. Next to the box was a charred black backpack. We also found that at 6:30 a.m. on the day of the incident, the eldest son had sent messages to several close friends saying, "I'm leaving. Take care." He also sent a message to his girlfriend, "I love you. Be happy in the future." In the master bedroom, in the pocket of a green jacket hanging up, we found residue from a lighter. There were rose marks on his right wrist. My police intuition tells me there's more to this story. Further investigation revealed that the eldest son had been facing serious financial problems, not just because of business failure. He was burdened with huge gambling debts, which his father paid off. However, the father often argued with him and threatened to stop helping him. Even more shocking, we discovered that the eldest son's girlfriend was actually his father's mistress. This shocking fact was recorded in the eldest son's diary. The diary was filled with resentment towards his father and infatuation with this woman. I can't stand him wavering between me and my father. This betrayal is more painful than death. I need to end this." The last page of the diary read, "Just as we were about to close the case, the forensic department sent a report. The carbon monoxide level in the eldest son's body was significantly lower than that of the other family members. Even more puzzling, traces of sedatives were found in his blood. This discovery overturned our previous assumptions. If the eldest son wasn't the last to die, who drugged him?" I immediately reviewed the younger son's case. His symptoms during hospitalization were significantly different from those of the other family members. He recovered unusually quickly without the typical sequelae of carbon monoxide poisoning. I remembered a detail from the crime scene. The younger son was found in the living room, not in his own room. The day after the funeral, I had the younger son come to the police station. When I saw his spotless car, I knew I was right. "Your car is very clean," I said, "especially the back seat." His expression changed for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. "Yes, I like to keep things tidy," he replied calmly. I decided to get straight to the point. "We found some interesting things at the scene," I said. "You were found in the living room, not in your room. Can you explain that?" The younger son hesitated, then said, I remember smelling something strange, and then going to check, but I passed out in the living room," I continued. "We found sedatives in your brother's blood. Did you know that? Do you know?" His hands started to tremble slightly. "I don't know," he stammered. I pulled out a report. "Interestingly, we found some shredded paper in your trash can. Our technicians pieced it together and found that it was a receipt for purchasing a lawnmower. The date was the day before the incident. The signature looks a lot like yours." The younger son's breathing became rapid. I didn't say anything, just watched him quietly. It wasn't long before he broke down. He was in tears and said excitedly, "You don't understand. No one can understand. Some wounds are worse than death." He didn't admit it directly, but his words gave us enough information to piece together the truth. His father was a retired veteran who had been mentally abusing the younger son for years, belittling him, saying he would never be as good as his brother. The mother knew all this but chose to remain silent. The younger son felt betrayed by the whole family. "I used to tell my brother," the younger son sobbed, "but he didn't believe me. He said I was lying, trying to cause trouble." On his 18th birthday, the younger son mustered the courage to resist his father's control. He secretly applied to a university far from home and announced it on his birthday. His father was furious. To him, it was just a challenge to his authority, a betrayal of family tradition. Their family for generations had to live and work in this city. "He even threatened to kick me out," the youngest son said, choking up even more. "At that moment, I decided to make them pay. I want them to feel my pain, let them know what it feels like to be betrayed by those closest to you. The case is closed, but the question remains, what is missing? What drove a young man to such extremes? A psychoanalyst told me this is a classic case of long-term trauma leading to extreme behavior. Victims sometimes internalize the pain, leading to devastating results. Perhaps some wounds are indeed more terrible than death, but we must continue to unearth these hidden pains, because only in this way can we truly prevent such tragedies from happening. As a caregiver, the first thing they train you to do is to be prepared for anything. My workday starts around 3:30 a.m. when my pager goes off. I force myself to wake up in time to catch a ride with my partner, Xiaojiang. Xiaojiang has only been an EMT for a few years, but his leadership and keen insight have brought him many benefits, one of which is that he can ride a spare ambulance from the hospital home to deal with the situations we encounter that night. The dispatcher said they received a call a few minutes ago. The location is near Bridge Arch Falls. Xiaojiang stepped on the gas while saying this. I quickly prepared the supplies to deal with any possible situations. Listening to the 911 report on the radio, the call came from a homeless shelter downtown. It was reported that a woman was experiencing some kind of seizure, foaming at the mouth. The first thing I thought of was that some lowlife was trying to drug her. This kind of thing happens often in these places. But when we arrived at the shelter, my reaction turned to confusion. The building looked like it had been abandoned and had no electricity. My first question was, how could someone call from here? Could it be a prank? I asked. Then, Xiaozhan spotted a figure near the window. It was the woman the dispatcher reported. She was walking strangely towards us, walking with a limp. I jumped out of the ambulance and ran towards her, wanting to help her. "Hello, we're here to help you," I told her. The woman didn't respond. I could see foam still coming out of her mouth, and her body was still convulsing, but she could still stand upright and walk. I pulled open the ambulance door and lifted her onto the stretcher, but when the stretcher straps touched her, she started screaming in pain. Xiaozhan asked what was wrong. "He might have nerve damage. Get out of here now," I shouted. The woman started struggling and the screams grew louder. She struggled to break free from the stretcher. The ambulance lurched forward. I heard the siren. I reached for the tranquilizer to calm her down. As I prepared the needle, the woman started talking. It was all gibberish, meaningless. She kept repeating the same nonsense over and over. Then she bit her tongue and blood seeped from her mouth. I quickly injected the tranquilizer into her arm. She used a strength that I knew couldn't be her own to grab my arm. She had a pleading look in her eyes. Now she was showing a threatening look. We were on the highway. Cars were passing by quickly. This strange woman looked like she wanted to attack me. Then she bit me. I jumped up. She started screaming, became very savage. She was scratching me. I started pushing things frantically, trying to block her, but this woman's strength was abnormal. "What's happening in the back?" Xiaozhan asked. I couldn't explain it at all. Pull over, we have a situation here," I shouted, and the woman shook her head, hitting my face hard, trying to tear my face. "What the hell's going on? We'll be there in 10 minutes, Xiaozhan shouted. I fumbled around and found a dose of tranquilizer and poked it into her neck to calm her down. I saw her eyes widen. At first I thought the medicine wasn't working. Finally, she collapsed in the ambulance. When we arrived at the hospital, I told the emergency room staff to make sure she was tied up while removing the drugs from her system. I thought she was safe, things would calm down, but the worst was yet to come. I've heard that drug addicts do crazy things every time they go through withdrawal. It's hard to describe witnessing it firsthand. I was drinking coffee at the time, rubbing the wound where the woman bit me. Suddenly, I heard a scream from the emergency room. I knew it was likely the woman, so I put down what I was doing to help. The woman somehow broke free from her restraints, grabbed the nurse on duty, and held a scalpel to her neck. Her eyes were wild. "You need to calm down. No one here will hurt you," I told her as I gently walked into the room. I'd only taken a few steps when she pushed the nurse away and jumped on me. She grabbed my face, screaming like a banshee, and ran out of the room. I hurriedly stood up to see where she had gone. She pushed aside anything in her way like a beast, attacking anyone who tried to stop her. One of the nurses called security while the woman picked up a chair and used it to smash open a medical cabinet. Glass and medicine bottles were scattered everywhere. The people around her screamed and dodged. I carefully tried to figure out how to corner her, watching her frantically search for drugs in the cabinet. I knew she was desperate and not thinking clearly. This made me even more afraid. When her eyes focused on me, I realized she would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. She picked up a piece of broken glass nearby and started throwing it at me. I didn't want to hurt her, but the drug was starting to take effect. I used another chair to block the glass. I slipped and fell to the ground, struggling to think what to do. If she wasn't subdued, the outcome would be disastrous. Just then, the police rushed in and started drawing their weapons. The woman immediately ran toward the open ward. My heart sank when the police opened fire. She began using other patients as human shields. Everything happened too fast. No one had time to react to her actions. Then I saw Xiaozhan coming in from the other side of the ER, completely unaware of what was happening. When the police rushed over to grab her, the woman recognized him and lunged at him. She viciously bit Xiaozhan's face and bit out one of his eyes. Blood gushed like beads. The police finally shot her from behind and killed her. Her body collapsed onto Xiaozhan. My friend screamed in unbearable pain. Blood kept pouring from his wound, staining the hospital floor red. Doctors and nurses rushed over, but Xiaozhan had already collapsed. His face was unrecognizable, and the empty socket where his eye had been made, everyone trembled in horror. Later, I sat alone outside the emergency room, still in shock. I couldn't believe what had just happened. The hospital director tried to comfort me, saying it was an unprecedented case, and that they would make sure the authorities investigated. But I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something wasn't right. That woman, she wasn't just another addict. The strength she showed, the way she spoke nonsense but with a strange rhythm, as if chanting something, still echoed in my head. And the bite she left on my arm burned more than any normal wound should. The police report simply stated, "Female subject, unknown identity, deceased after violent outburst, possible drug-induced psychosis." Case closed. But I know deep inside it wasn't that simple. For days I couldn't sleep. The sound of her screams, the look in her eyes, the way she begged silently before turning savage, it all haunted me. And Xiao Zhang, he will never be the same again. His career as an EMT is over. Sometimes I look at the scar on my arm. It's darkened, almost like it's spreading under my skin. The doctors say it's just tissue damage from the bite. But at night, I hear whispers. Faint, indistinct, like her voice, repeating the same gibberish over and over. I don't know if it's my imagination, or if something far worse was unleashed that night. But one thing I know for certain, what happened at that shelter wasn't an accident. It was a warning. And I fear the worst is yet to come. Maybe I was just overthinking. I walked over to my cousins and asked if they had seen the man staring at them, but they said no. That didn't surprise me, since they were boys and their attention was completely on the video games. Then, my bladder urged me. I needed to go to the bathroom. I told my cousins I'd be right back. They just nodded in agreement. When I walked into the McDonald's, the place had already filled with many customers. The atmosphere became livelier. I didn't see that strange man. Then I walked to the restroom door and bumped into my uncle. He said he was going to the gas station to fill up the car. I said, okay. Then I went into the restroom to take care of business. What happened next happened very quickly, so fast it could be missed in the blink of an eye. What happened next was very fast, so fast that you could miss it in the blink of an eye. I finished using the restroom, and the moment I opened the door, the men's restroom door also opened. It was that scruffy man I had seen outside earlier. Although he had made me feel a bit creepy before, I still smiled and nodded at him. However, when I turned to walk through the small passageway that connected the restroom to the rest of McDonald's, he suddenly jumped in front of me, blocking my way. At first, I was very confused. I didn't understand why he did that. At that moment, he suddenly grabbed me and lifted me onto his shoulder. That's when I realized I was in trouble. This weirdo took advantage of the empty place and tried to kidnap me. Although it all happened so fast, to me, it felt like slow motion. I remember struggling desperately, trying to get off his shoulder while screaming with all my strength. But strangely, I couldn't hear a single sound. I remember seeing my mom sitting at the far end of McDonald's, right where she could see the entrance. She suddenly stood up, mouth wide open, screaming. But I still couldn't hear a thing. The McDonald's door opened. A blast of hot air hit my face. The sunlight made me squint. It all seemed like it had just begun, but suddenly, I felt myself thrown to the ground. Why was that? A few seconds after falling down, my senses came back, and I finally understood what happened. I saw my uncle just a few steps away. The weirdo had let go of me and tried to run away, screaming while rushing toward a parked car nearby. The windows were all covered in dark tint. He shouted for the driver to start the car, but the car drove off, leaving him behind. Then I saw my uncle swing a hard punch to the back of his head with full force. The weirdo almost instantly collapsed onto the scorching ground. My uncle jumped on top of him and locked him in a chokehold while yelling for me to go inside and get help. I finally realized what was happening and ran inside for help. At that moment, my dad and two other big men rushed out through the front door of McDonald's to help restrain the weirdo. My mom and aunt pulled me back inside McDonald's, and one of the staff was calling 911. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. During the whole time, my uncle, my dad, and the other two men never let go of him. The police handcuffed the weirdo and took him away. A kind policewoman asked me some questions. She told me I was safe now. That man would never be a danger to me again. However, for the next week, I kept having nightmares. Time flew by. Now I'm a mother of two, and I've told them this story many times. Each time they feel creeped out when hearing it. It really is terrifying to think about. One minute, you're on vacation with your family, enjoying a wonderful summer holiday, and the next minute, a stranger's trying to kidnap you. God knows what could have happened. I'm very grateful my uncle showed up in time. If he hadn't happened to walk back to McDonald's at that moment, things could have turned out much worse. My parents probably wouldn't have been able to catch up with me. After all, that creep had an accomplice waiting in the car. If they had forced me into that car, I might have been taken deep into the desert and never heard from again. So I want to say this to everyone. Always be cautious when you're out, especially parents. Please take good care of your children. No matter what, don't ever let them out of your sight. When going out with kids, always stay alert and keep an extra eye out. That was in 2013. I was 23 at the time, living with my boyfriend in an apartment downtown in our city. We had lots of shopping centers around us and a few fast food places like McDonald's. That night it was around 9 p.m. I was playing online games with some friends and chatting at the same time. We started talking about food. So, we decided to stop at a safe house in the game and take a break. Meanwhile, my two friends heated up some food at their own homes to snack on. I was planning to heat something up too, but when I went into the kitchen to grab the leftovers from the night before, I found they had already gone bad. That made me so upset because I had saved them to eat later that night. I'm a night owl. I usually sleep during the day, so I don't eat much then. So I started thinking about what I should have for dinner. But my boyfriend had just gone to work, so he couldn't bring me anything. So I decided to put on my sneakers and run to the McDonald's across from the apartment to grab some food. I asked my friends if they could wait for me. They said no problem. We could just leave the game running and take a break and continue after I got back. So I grabbed a light jacket, put on my sneakers, and went to McDonald's. By then it was almost 9:30 p.m. McDonald's was busy. I placed my order and waited with my ticket. When I looked down at my phone, suddenly someone tapped me on the shoulder. I looked up and saw a middle-aged man I'd never seen before. He apologized for bothering me and asked my name. I quickly made up a fake name to tell him. Then he started complimenting my eyes and my ginger hair. I awkwardly thanked him for the compliment and kept staring at the screen to check my order status. Then he suddenly asked if I had any plans for the night. I told him I already did. Then he asked if I had a boyfriend. I told him I did. That seemed to make him back off a little. But for some reason, maybe my gut instinct told me not to take my eyes off him. I just had a very bad feeling that he was up to something, waiting for me to let my guard down. Then he walked away toward the counter. It was his turn to order. I felt relieved because he finally disappeared from my sight. About 5 minutes later, I got my food and walked out of McDonald's. I looked up toward my apartment, ready to eat my first meal of the day and excited to get back to gaming. "Hey, wait up!" I heard someone shout nearby. I turned my head and saw the same man from McDonald's who had asked me all those weird questions earlier. He pulled up in a truck, blocking my way, stopping me in my tracks. "What is it?" I nervously asked. "I can give you a ride home. You shouldn't be walking alone at night. There are lots of creeps out here." As if he wasn't one himself. "No thanks, I'm fine. But I appreciate the offer." I politely turned him down. "It's fine. Let me take you. It's no trouble at all. I love helping young women like you." By then, I was already getting really annoyed because my apartment was just across the street, yet he wouldn't let me go on my own. So I told him more firmly, "Listen to me. I said I don't need your help." That made him very upset and made what happened next even scarier. Do you know what he said to me then? He called me a bitch, then opened his car door and tried to get out to block me. I was terrified because the way he spoke and looked at me made it seem like he was about to attack me. Then I saw the light ahead turn green. So I thought, forget it, and started running. I could hear him shouting behind me, telling me to come back. Unfortunately, while I was trying to get away from this creep, I tripped on a road that had been patched up after an earthquake months before and fell face first onto the concrete. I hadn't bought a drink because I planned to go home to drink water. But my food bag fell to the ground. Luckily, the food didn't fall out of the bag. But that wasn't the thing I was most worried about at the time. Although I was grateful that I didn't get seriously hurt from the fall, I knew he was still following me. Just as I tried to stand up again and regain consciousness, I saw flashing lights behind me. It was that McDonald's creep again. He drove up quickly, chasing me. He rolled down the window and demanded I get in the car. "You're hurt. Let me take you to the hospital for a checkup." This guy was really relentless. That much I had to admit. I was furious. I flipped him off and told him to get lost. He got angry again. "What did you just say?" he shouted. Then he drove closer to the curb and stopped, turned off the engine, and got ready to chase me again. At that point, I didn't care anymore if he found out where I lived, because where else could I go? I ran off again, this time being extra careful with the ground beneath my feet. I ran toward my apartment entrance. That guy was still chasing me, seemingly wanting to catch me and teach me a lesson. Thankfully, the apartment required a key to get in, and he didn't have one. So I quickly ran inside and finally got rid of him. Breathing heavily, I looked back at him through the glass window. His face was bright red. I could vaguely make out that he was saying something, but couldn't hear exactly what. He made a gesture, as if to say this wasn't over, then left. Well, after that, I never left my apartment alone again. About a year later, we moved somewhere else because my boyfriend got a great job opportunity. So I never saw that creep again. I hope I never will. If he dares to pull anything again, my pepper spray is ready for him. I come from a small town. There were 3 different elementary schools in town, only 1 middle school and high school. The 2 buildings were connected by the gym and a tunnel. I'd always lived there. When I was in middle school, I encountered a group of bullies. They liked to make every moment of my life a living hell. They did pretty much everything you could imagine, awful things, from pranks in class to outright physical attacks. But compared to this girl I met in 7th grade, they were nothing. Let's call her Little D. Little D was the typical mean girl. She had a group of friends who obeyed her every order. Every boy either liked her or wanted her. She was the kid with the most detentions, often arguing with teachers. The principal was almost indifferent to her behavior. I was a timid, gullible, easily bullied girl. But I did try to do well in school and keep a low profile. But it didn't help much. Little D made me miserable every time she saw me. At first, she spread rumors about me and talked bad about me online. I didn't even have social media back then, and only found out later. At school, she also threw things at me, from her trash to one of her textbooks. At first, it wasn't scary, so I chose to ignore her. But when other kids saw I wouldn't fight back, they joined in too, and things got way out of hand. Almost every day we'd be chased in the hallways, beaten up in the bathroom, had our food stolen, blamed by teachers, their stupid antics in class, and many other things. These kids kept me on edge for the whole school year. I even considered running away to avoid going back to that school hell. You might ask why I didn't tell the school. Well, I tried dozens of times. Told teachers, counselors, even the principal. But they didn't care. Teachers said the school only cared about funding, sports events, and overall GPA. Everything else was ignored. So when I tried to tell them Little D and her lackeys were bullying me, they just brushed me off. Here are some of their real reactions to what happened. When my backpack was thrown down the stairs, the calculator I brought from home was broken. That's your stuff, your problem. When Little D used a permanent marker to write on my locker door a fat joke and an insult, you have no proof it was him. When Little D's boyfriend and his friends cornered me outside the locker room asking for things, they were probably just joking. All of these acts were led by Little D, and everything she did never got her into trouble. That summer came too quickly. By the end of 7th grade, they let those kids get away with it. I had already given up seeking outside help. I decided to change things when I returned to school the next year. I would no longer be Little D's personal punching bag. At the start of 8th grade, I was ready. I learned what fighting tasted like and began to defend myself with words. I wasn't so quiet anymore. I fought back, and it worked. Last year's bullies never looked at me again. Except for Little D. She was still trying to play her old tricks. But the more I showed her I didn't care, the angrier she got. Honestly, it felt like to her it was a full payback for all the bad things she did to me last year. But Little D just wouldn't let go. I didn't know then that her whole behavior would eventually turn to something evil. One day I was heading to the gym and little D followed right behind me. She didn't take PE with me, but she liked to follow me during breaks and try to provoke me. But that day I wasn't in a good mood. I don't remember why, but I was under a lot of stress and I kept getting angry at everything that went wrong that day. Little D followed behind trying to humiliate me with different words. That was the last straw. I suddenly stopped walking, turned around, and shoved back. Little D spat, spitting on my leg. I told her to get lost, stop bothering me. Little D just stood there staring at me. I thought she would explode with rage or scream or something else, but she just stood there like a deer caught in headlights. I didn't think much of it then, because soon after I went to PE class and eventually forgot about it. After school, I walked through the building, heading to the high school parking lot, planning to wait for the bus there. Everything seemed normal until I saw little D not far from me. I didn't notice anything strange, so I didn't pay attention and kept walking, until I noticed she was also walking in the direction of the bus with me. I took a different route than usual, going around the back of the school. I looked back and saw little D taking the exact same path. Every time I looked back at her, she would stop walking. I began to walk a little faster. Then from behind, I heard her running to catch up. As I neared the bus stop, she was about 30 meters behind me, still jogging after me. I didn't want her to know which bus was mine or to follow me home, so I decided to trick her. I jumped onto a different bus, which made the driver very unhappy. Little D ran in after me, and when she rushed up to the bus driver, yelling something at him loudly, I quickly slipped away and sprinted to find my real bus, which was on the other side of that bus. That bus was at the other end of the lot. I got on my bus. Just as little D got off to see where I had gone, the bus drove away. The next day, I didn't see little D at school, not in class, not at lunch, not even after school. I asked others, but no one knew where she went. This went on for a whole week. The bus incident happened on Monday. The disappearance happened on Tuesday. By Thursday, I started to let my guard down. I still didn't understand why little D did what she did throughout the bus incident, but as long as she wasn't around, everything felt fine. Until Friday afternoon came. Just like the days before, little D wasn't there. I was relaxed most of the time. After school, I was about to walk out the front doors. Suddenly, a terrible feeling hit me. It told me not to go out. I didn't know where that feeling came from, but I thought it was just my leftover anxiety messing with me. So I went out anyway, but I still felt uneasy inside. There was no hallway or sidewalk connecting the middle school and high school buildings. In front, there was a long sidewalk. I had to walk to the bus parking lot. It was at the other end of that long sidewalk. The sidewalk stretched across the front of both schools. It was a long way, and the entrance to the high school was often crowded with students. When this happened, I had just walked down the outside stairs onto the sidewalk. Then, I saw someone running around the corner of the building. I looked and saw it was little D. She looked furious like a rabid dog. She charged at me full speed. Terrified, I bolted. Little D quickly chased right behind me. All I could do was run and pray for help. I weaved through a group of kids, just trying to lose her in the crowd. I didn't care at all about bumping into people then. I just feared little D was still behind me. When I reached the bus stop, I didn't see her anymore. So I stopped, nearly collapsed, gasping for air. But I only felt relief for a second. Then I saw little D suddenly appear from the side of the crowd and lunge at me. Little D grabbed my hair and backpack, spinning me around. I tried to push her away. She kept yanking. I felt like my hair was about to rip out, but he still continued. I screamed for help, kicking blindly in his direction. But either no one wanted to intervene or they were too scared. No one dared step in to separate us. Then, Xiao Di let go of my hair and reached for something behind him. Just then, my brother came out of the high school with a soda. He saw this and ran over to help. He was the only one who knew Xiao Di. He threw the soda at Xiao Di's head. That scared him enough to let go of me and drop what he was holding. I grabbed my brother and ran to the bus. We got on just before it drove off. After finding a seat, I looked back outside. What I saw still chills me to this day. Xiao Di was pinned to the ground, his arms held down by teachers. On the ground next to him lay an open hunting knife. I knew it was his, because I heard the sound earlier when he dropped the knife. The following Monday, I was called to the office. My brother was already waiting there. We were taken to the counselor's office. 2 police officers were waiting there. Apparently, after we ran off, a high school teacher saw Xiao Di pick up the weapon, so they detained him. Now, they needed to know what happened from me. I broke down right then. I told them everything. What Xiao Di had done to me last year, what I almost did because of his torment, the bus incident the week before, and what happened on the sidewalk. My brother held me, and I just sat there, almost crying as I recounted it all. The police and counselor just sat there, writing down what I said, but looking at me with sympathy. One of the officers asked if I was willing to tell my parents so they could press charges. At that moment, I just wanted this nightmare to end. So I told them to do whatever they wanted. I just wanted it all to stop. The counselor could see I had had enough, so he sent me back to class. My brother and I agreed never to talk about it again. Xiao Di eventually spent the rest of the school year in juvenile detention, until midway through the second semester of freshman year. The school also made some changes. Now, there are police on duty at both schools during classes. Our anti-bullying policies became stricter. If needed, kids could now stay with teachers before, during, and after class. After that, I never saw Xiao Di again, not even passing by. Later, I learned from one of his old friends that after graduating high school, he went to take the G1 exam. Because he had a criminal record, it was hard for him to go to college again. From that incident on the sidewalk to now, more than 9 years have passed. Although this may not have been the worst thing other kids might have gone through, I can still feel the trauma from my middle school years, especially what Xiao Di did to me. After graduating middle school, I developed depression, severe social anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. All of these were caused by bullying. I can't put all the blame on just this incident. Perhaps if I had spoken up more strongly to the teachers and principal, tried harder to speak out, maybe none of this would have happened. But in the end, things did get better. I'm much better now. I'm receiving therapy, and I'm now in college. I feel incredibly proud of the progress I've made. Hello everyone. I'm a 24-year-old guy living in the UK. I work as a pharmacist in a hospital, usually working night shifts. The hospital is only a few streets away from my home, so every night I walk to work. A few months ago, around midnight, I was on my way to work when a car stopped in front of me and rolled down the window. The person inside was wearing scrubs. I guessed he might be a nurse. He had black hair, a bit chubby, about the same age as me. "Hey, where are you going? I'll give you a ride." He looked harmless, but I politely refused anyway. He looked ordinary, but for some reason I felt uneasy. However, he didn't leave but insisted on driving me to work. I couldn't take it anymore, so I told him I was waiting for my boyfriend. That was a lie because my boyfriend was far away in the US, but he seemed to believe it and then drove off. A few days later, I received a chat request. I checked the profile and realized it was that creepy guy, the one who had offered me a ride to work. How did he know my name? I had no idea. But later, I didn't think too much about it and continued with my busy life. 2 days later, I got another message from him. "You were smiling then. You looked really cute." Reading that message, I felt like a bucket of cold water was poured over me. Was he at the hospital? I told him to stay away from me and not to harass me. A few days later, when I had almost forgotten about him, I saw him again. He was standing in the hallway, watching me. I was leaving the room to make rounds at the time. He tried to approach me, but I took a shortcut to another hallway and went back to the pharmacy. I was terrified. I told my boyfriend about it. He suggested I drive to work and stop walking. So from that day, I started driving. I also blocked him to avoid more creepy and frightening messages. Up until now, I haven't seen him for months. I hope I never see him again. This is a story about how I was almost kidnapped by a coworker back when I was in high school. I worked part-time at a store to earn some pocket money. I was a cashier and had been working there for 2 or 3 years during my high school years. I attended a vocational school. One year, a guy started working there. For the sake of telling this story, let's call him Conan. He went to the same school as me. After working together, we became more familiar, but I never considered him a friend, just a coworker I knew. To be honest, I always had an uncomfortable feeling about him. His words and actions made me uneasy. He hadn't done anything blatantly offensive. I had no reason to avoid or dislike him. It's hard to explain. I just had this strange gut feeling. Before I continue with the story, I want to explain my work routine a bit. I usually took the bus, or my dad would drive me to work. From the bus stop to my workplace, it took about 15 minutes to walk. If the bus was on time, I still had to transfer at a certain point. The commute took 25 minutes. If it was rush hour and the buses were packed, it could take more than 45 minutes, and my dad would only drive me on weekends to and from work. A few weeks later, my conversations with Conan increased. I started to feel that he liked me. No matter which checkout counter I was at, he would often pass by in front of me. Sometimes he would stop to chat a little. I always maintained a friendly attitude and never did or said anything that might make him uncomfortable. One day he asked if I wanted a ride home. I thought it was strange because I didn't think he had a car. I always saw him skateboarding to work, so I politely declined. Then we each went our separate ways. The next weekend he invited me again, and I still refused. I asked if he had a car. He said no, but he could borrow one from his parents and then drive me home. I told him it wasn't necessary. I could just take the bus myself. This exchange happened about 5 or 6 more times. I had to admire his persistence. Each time I politely refused. But after the third time, I started to feel a bit creeped out. In the mind of a high school girl like me, I thought I had made myself clear. I wasn't interested in spending more time with him. Then, one day, when I turned on the radio, Kangnan came over and said, "Hey, I finally have my own car." I was happy for him, because in the past few weeks we had talked at work about his parents possibly taking him to buy a car soon. We had discussed it before. I congratulated him. Then he asked if he could drive me home. At that point, I was really fed up. I thought maybe if I agreed this time and let him drive me home, he wouldn't ask again. The days went by, and the last time, which was the day of the incident, he asked me again, and I agreed. He had asked me early that morning because that day my dad couldn't pick me up, and I really didn't want to walk to the bus stop. So I said yes. At lunchtime on the 18th, I took a break and went to the break room to eat. As my break was ending, another employee came over and started talking about several police cars in the parking lot with their lights on, and 2 officers, one of whom went to the administrative office. The rest of the story I pieced together from what others told me. The local police occasionally drove past my workplace and noticed in the parking lot a vehicle that had been reported stolen that morning. He parked the car on the roadside to investigate. At that moment, when another officer stopped the car, he found a backpack hidden behind a nearby tree. They did some investigation and discovered something. There was also an ID card. Then they went to the administrator's office. The police told them what they had found. Kangnan was called again to talk to them. It turned out that Kangnan had stolen his uncle's car that morning. The backpack that was found contained many tools for committing crimes. There was a rope, tape to cover switches, and blades. When he was called to the office, his uncle and parents were also summoned. I guess it was because his uncle didn't press charges. So Kangnan didn't leave with the police. I don't know if he was ever asked about the items in the backpack. If he was questioned, I don't know what he would have answered, because no one knew he was going to drive me home that day. I didn't tell anyone until after it happened. That's when I told my mom that Kangnan wasn't working there anymore. For a long time after that, the whole thing gave me chills, so I was extra cautious, avoiding running into him at school. I remember this now because I saw a shared memorial post on Facebook with his photo. When I checked the profile, I clicked because I recognized that face. I had always blocked this person, as well as this clearly traumatic experience, because I didn't want to recall that horrible memory. It's been 8 years. After some research, I found out that he had died. On his profile, there were his previous workplaces. One of them was where I used to work. When my mom learned the truth about this, she was terrified. My mind immediately went back to the past. Thankfully, he had been caught by the police then. Otherwise, I truly don't know what outcome would have awaited me.